Hi, my name is Rachel Forer. I'm 65 and I'm a good friend of Sammy Shapiro's parents.
Are you or were you married, or did you have a family? Describe the family.
Yes, I'm the oldest of five children. I was the last of the five to get married and the only one of the five not to have any children myself.
Where and when were you born?
I was born January 7th, 1949, in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, at the University of Pennsylvania Hospital.
Are you the first generation to be born in the U.S.? If not, do you know who was?
Uh, Out of my four grandparents, three of them emigrated to the U.S. My maternal grandmother was born in Wilmington, Delaware. My maternal grandfather was born in Canada and immigrated as a young man. And both of my paternal grandparents uh, immigrated from the Azore Islands to Massachusetts, as many Portuguese people did.
If applicable, can you remember August 6th and 9th, 1945, when America dropped the two atom bombs on Japan? How do you think the U.S. changed following this event?
It was a little before my time, but certainly the aftermath of it was around. When I was in elementary school, we had atom bomb drills where, like, similar to fire drills today, where everybody went down into the basement of the school and sat along a wall and put their head down on their knees with their hands over top. And I remember, certainly it was a fear in the back of my mind. I mean, I can remember as a young teenager at times when I would be, just depressed about normal teenage life, thinking, well, my God, why am I worried about this? The whole world may end up blowing up. Something that people were, aware of as a threat.
What do you remember about November 22nd, 1963, when John F. Kennedy was assassinated? Many people have said hope in America died a little that day. Do you agree or disagree? How did America change?
Yes, I remember the day vividly. I was in ninth grade Spanish class, and it was announced over the PA system. And my first reaction was it was a joke, it wasn't true. And they really didn't say anything more about it in school, but as soon as we got home, I was listening to the news and, of course, saw the funeral on television. It was such a terribly sad time. It was like, yeah, how could such a terrible thing happen? And then, of course, with Kennedy's brother Bobby being killed and Martin Luther King being assassinated right in that same time period. I mean, yeah, it was this feeling of the, Camelot was over, and we needed to refind our way.
How about the Vietnam War? Do you think America has lost trust in the federal government by the end of the war? And if so, has this trust ever been won back?
Uh, for the country as a whole, yes, there was certainly in all the editorials, etc., and people's comments, a loss of trust. And I think people today do not believe in their government the way they did, say, in the 50s or early 60s, when government was considered a force for good, not possibly bumbling or inept or doing something covert. If I was a male and was drafted, I do not think I would have gone to Canada. I think I would have, done my duty, but I certainly wouldn't have enlisted.
How do you think the world's perception of the United States changed on July 20th, 1969, when we put the first men on the moon?
Oh, it was kind of a heady, wonderful, my God, we really did it. And I mean, it was euphoric. I remember when the Russian Sputnik went up when I was in, I think, fifth grade in elementary school. And it's like the Soviet Union is way ahead of us in the space race. And then, of course, then remembering Kennedy and putting a man on the moon in 10 years. I mean, to me, one of the most miraculous things is that in 60 years, we went from the first flight, the Wright brothers, to a man on the moon. I mean, my God, talk about time speeding up. I think the country as a whole felt patriotic and thrilled to be an American. As far as world perception, I think the countries around the world basically were looking at the U.S. and the USSR as the superpowers, and the fact that the Russians had originally were way ahead in the space race. I think it improved our standing in other countries' eyes. They've had, okay, the U.S. has its stuff together. They are way ahead of where the Russians are.
How do you think the world looked at U.S. following Nixon's resignation on August 8th, 1974, in response to the Watergate scandal?
Well, I think they were, we had mud on our face. We were airing our dirty laundry to the whole world. Certainly, it lowered our standing in the eyes of the world.
What way do you think our nation changed on November 9th, 1989, when the Berlin Wall came down, effectively ending the Cold War?
Certainly the feeling of we had won the Cold War was there and made us feel happy, safer. And then, of course, when the USSR collapsed sometime after that, I was happy we won and they didn't. I think the nation became, I don't know, would you say more confident? Would, I guess, be the best way to put it.
What do you remember about September 11th, 2001, when the country experienced their terrorist attacks on the Pentagon and the World Trade Center? How was America changed by this?
What I remember is my spouse was getting ready to, was left for the airport to commute to work in Detroit, and was left on the plane and sat at the airport for an hour and then came back. All the airports were closed down. I was an elementary school teacher at that time, and school was canceled. So the two of us sat there in front of the TV all day watching events unfold. I'm glad that they didn't show the people jumping out of buildings, although, I heard after the fact that happened, but the visuals were pretty gruesome, and certainly the re-seeing the tower blowing up over and over, it's infused on everybody's memory. How we were changed by this, it was like, instead of, though it can't happen here, we're protected by the oceans. Well, if we look at, we now have the Homeland Security, and of course the whole TSA thing at the airport.
Finally, it is said that every American citizen has a dream, be it wealth, happiness, a better life for their children, etc. What was your dream, and do you think you've achieved it?
Well, my initial dream was to be an artist, the Picasso of the second half of the 20th century. You haven't heard of me, so that didn't happen. I was a very successful teacher and felt pleased with that. On the side of that was, to be happy. I never wanted to be rich, and I had given up the idea of being famous. There's an old proverb that happiness is something to do, something to love, and something to hope for. My to-do was to, first half of my life, do something for society, which was teaching, to make the world a better place. And then the second half for me. I haven't been retired that long, so I'm still kind of wending my way around. I'd say I'm content. Life goes on.